thou come, just for once come to me? Wilt thou come, just for once come to me? Will my days fly away without seeing thee, my Lord? Night and day, I look for thee, night and day. Hello, friends. I'm hoping this is being recorded because using a new recording system today is kind of a trial. So I'm going to assume we are live and you are very much alive too. So today's Whispers from Eternity, we have progressed quite near to the end of the book. We have some surprises for you when we reach that point, but you're just going to have to hang on. Number 210. I pour out my love at thy feet of immortality. I plucked blossoms of light from dawn's heart as offerings to thee. I have lighted lamps of wakefulness in the temple of my morning silence. I beheld thy bliss face emerge from the dark shadows of my ignorance, where it had been hidden for long eons by my indifference. And, seeing thy smiling joy, I know that my own capacity for happiness mirrored thy blessed image. But my heart's tiny capacity for love only mirrored thy infinite love. My little piece of mind mirrored thy awe-inspiring, majestic calmness. I will blame fates no longer for any suffering that comes my way. Divine Mother, it was my self-made darkness that hid the glory of our mutual love. Now I see myself reflected in thy bliss. Know that I too am perfect bliss. For my own mirror is clear now. I behold thy reflection in it. O thou ever sacred, omnipresent, perfect bliss, I pour libations of love at thy feet of immortality. I pour out my heart to thee from the overflowing chalice of my soul. I wash with the precious musk of my reverence thy feet of ever-moving progress toward thee. Ever-moving progress. Wow. Well, I've been reading an interesting book that somebody left on my desk the other day. I don't know if you can see this. Oh, not with my hand in it. It's called Immortality, Restoring the Common Good in Divided Times. And Yogananda ends this prayer demand with the prayer demand for ever-moving progress. You know, in the Western philosophy, which is not as expansive or subtle or nuanced as Eastern philosophy, we have in Western philosophy that either or is how we think. And so when we see the polarization of modern times in politics and society generally, we see a reflection of that either or. Those of us of my so-called baby boomer generation growing up after World War II, born into a fairly secure environment, somewhat prosperous, or very prosperous by comparison with other countries, and secure relatively, we don't realize how unusual has been our life, the blessings of our life, the lifestyles we've been permitted to have. In this book, Immortality, he talks about the same kinds of things that my teacher and founder of Ananda, Swami Kriyananda, talked about, which is the appearance of, selfishness, yes, certainly, nihilism, meaning meaninglessness, which we see just quite throughout the art of the 20th century. When you have 100 million people slaughtered by various regimes, left and right throughout the world, all in the name of improving the life of citizens, you see a lot of confusion. And certainly plenty of generations post-war have been accused of being me generations and I. And so this book has for its thesis the importance of a shared morality, a consciousness of not just I, but we. And it's an interesting, and who would argue with it, kind of derivation from the Golden Rule. It's a very insightful book despite the simpleness of its thesis and the somewhat old-fashioned terminology. I mean, morality is never old-fashioned, but the term itself connotes commandments and the kind of thing that consciousness is actually trying to break away from. So it's sort of too bad that this is written by a rabbi. The intelligence of this book is somewhat lessened by its reversion to former ways of thinking. You see, from the East comes the term self-realization. And although one could superficially interpret that to be selfish, just as the image of someone meditating, withdrawing from the world in order to achieve inner peace or whatever it is, could appear to be superficially, without understanding, an act that is selfish, that is, focused just on me. And it can be that too also. But the thesis, the revelation, not just a hypothesis of the East, is the revelation, is that at my center exists my capacity to reach your center. That the twin commandments of both the Old and New Testament, to love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, mind, soul, and strength, and the second, like unto the first, to love thy neighbor as thyself. This is a universal teaching. What yoga offers to us, what self-realization principles offer to us, is that in order to love our neighbor as ourself, we have to find that love within ourselves. It's not the same as loving ourselves in the way that that term usually means. It's, I just love myself, I'm so wonderful. It's not that. It's finding that the power of love, the transforming power of love, isn't ours. It resides within us. It's the only place it resides. If it's imposed according to the dictates of morality, the Golden Rule upon me, well, that's not going to sink very deeply, is it? I'm going to rebel against that probably. And so what this author lacks is the deep and abiding power of self-realization, the deep and abiding power of reaching that point in our own consciousness, which is the source of our very life capacity, our life abilities. When we say all men are created equal, or all people created equal, as we're more likely to say these days, that equality is not in terms of our outward attributes, because some people are smart and some people are stupid. I mean, why mince words? But we are all made from the same cloth, from the same spark of divinity, which is to say, from universal consciousness. And when we can discover the actual field of consciousness, the actual experience of consciousness, which has no conditions, in which contentment, joy, confidence, love can be experienced without conditions of outer circumstances, then it's much easier to carry that truth into daily life. And the author here of Morality talks a lot about truth. And that in our dialogues, rather than just, it's really quite a good book. It's very deep and very insightful, despite some of the things I might be saying about it now. But that truth allows us teaches us to listen in order to find it, but then teaches us thereby to listen and feel to the realities of other people, because that truth lies everywhere. It doesn't mean that people are equally right, equally intelligent. I'm not saying that kind of liberal thinking. I'm saying that we can perceive the underlying truth of another person. We can listen to them and try to find common ground, because that common ground is the reality that here we are, and we all partake of the universal life, which is God, which is love, which is joy. And so this is the message of self-realization. It's not new, but in terms of Western thinking, where either or pervades our way of thinking, I'm either Democrat or I'm Republican, I'm either left or I'm right, that kind of thinking is what needs to be demolished in the center of our being. This is the great gift of yoga practice, which is to turn our attention inward, to become more centered in the self, not the ego self, but the true self. And that's what can make us free. I think we just cannot perceive the depths of the gift that the East has brought to the West in order to save us from ourselves. There is hope for a better world. The 3 books of Swami Kriyananda that I made reference to, in which he addresses the issue of meaninglessness, the competitive and conflicting theories that are born of things that are born of survival from the fittest, that found expression in Marxism and communism and capitalism and all these isms that compete one against the other. His 3 books are Out of the Labyrinth, Hope for a Better World, and God is for Everyone. As insightful as this book is for modern times, Swami Kriyananda's books are forever and for the times in which we live. And so on Wednesday nights, we have our book club, and tomorrow night, Wednesday night, my friend Ethan Barker is going to share with us an important play that Swami Kriyananda wrote. He wrote it inspired by inspired is not quite the word, but World War II and the conflicts inherent in such a world war. The question of how to live in peace and harmony with everyone. Okay, great friends, I hope this thing got recorded. I'm not sure how to turn it off, but bear with me and I'll figure that out. Okay. I control it with my phone. Isn't that cool?